2005, I apply at probably 50 law firms in Kansas City, probably some in St. Louis too area, and I get a job at one of them. One single firm took a shot at me. It's a firm called Frankie Schultz and Mullen Law Firm. This was to be a summer intern between my second and third year of law school. And so I get the job there. I'm ecstatic. Okay. In fact, I got the job, and Jason was there when I was offered the job. Went for an interview at the firm during the day, and then went to lunch. You remember?
Capitol Grill.
At the old Capitol Grill, which isn't around anymore. We sat at this horseshoe table, and where do they put the law student? Right at the head of the table, like you're on public display. And I remember the boss, one of the bosses, Schultz, so it's Frankie Schultz and Mullen. We have lunch, and about halfway through lunch, he's like, I gotta go pick my dad up from the airport. And he's like, I'll call you next week about the job. It takes about 3 steps, turns back around towards me, and he's like, hey, you got the job. Call me next week if you want it. And I get back to the table, and I'm like, I think he just offered, was that a joke? Like, I thought he was like joking with me.
We told you that's just how Schultz is.
And I didn't believe it at the time. But yeah, so Jason was a real lawyer there. What were you?
I was I think my
second year?
second year, and I remember that morning Schultz came by and asked me if I wanted to go to lunch with some guy named Dipasquale. I think he missed out. Like, who's that? He's a law student. So Capitol Grill, free lunch, wine. Yeah, I'll go.
Why not?
So it was actually at least one other person of our firm, Ryan Watson was there.
There's a bunch of people there.
Ryan Watson was there.
Pamela Welch was there,
right.
Watson. There was probably 6, 7, 8 lawyers there. And I remember just being like totally on the spot. So I get the job there, and I show up in the summer, and Jason's there. And we just hit it off as buddies. We like to argue about sports, so some things never change. We like to argue, number one. Number two, sports was kind of the deal. And Jason being a Missouri guy and me, Kansas guy, was a natural, headbutting. So I worked there over the summer. And fast forward to spring of 06, I get a job there full-time to come on full-time lawyer in fall of 06. And by the time I came back, you were gone.
So I left. I got I jumped for what I thought was a more prestigious job. It was more money, and went over to a different firm. So Michael and I missed each other.
Biggest firm in Missouri.
Yeah, biggest firm in Missouri. And I stayed there for about 2 years. Michael and I had actually remained friends, and we would meet up for happy hour or whatever. We went to some games.
KU, MU games at Columbia and Lawrence,
And ironically, I wanted to come back to that firm, Frankie Schultz and Mullen, but by the time I was coming back, Michael was leaving to go work in his family's business at the time, Newport Television. And I think, ironically, I occupied the office Michael had just vacated.
It was like a 7
on a Monday, I was like finding Michael's personal effects in the drawers and stuff. But we'd remained friends, and I actually did a little bit of work for you guys.
Yeah. So when remember, we're like two ships passing in the wind. So I'm leaving Frankie Schultz and Mullen. Jason's coming back. I'm going to work for Newport Television as the lawyer for Newport Television. At the same time, I set up, I didn't know it at the time, what was the precursor to Dipasquale Moore. It was the law offices of Michael V, my middle name Vincent, and Dipasquale. And I was taking personal injury cases just on a one-off basis while doing work for the company Newport Television. And Jason did some work. I was the general counsel, so the main lawyer. And Jason and me were buddies, so we do work for Newport Television. And that's from probably up to about 2012, we were going to sell Newport Television. So I'm starting to think the next thing that I want to do, the next step in my life. And I love being a lawyer. I love being an injury attorney, which is what we do. I didn't love what we did in our last firm. Our last firm, we represented people who caused accidents, and then I subsequently represented people who've been injured. I just enjoyed that more. So as I was kind of brainstorming this idea for a law firm, I said, I really want to have a partner. I don't know why I want to have a partner. I think because at the time, at least, it was safety in numbers. You want to have someone to go through the ups and downs with you. And I know when I'm picking somebody that I like to work with, do business with, whatever I like to do with a friend, Jason was a good friend. A lot of people tell you that you shouldn't do business with a friend. I disagree with that. I think you can see at this law firm how many people here, Jason and myself, have had connect beyond ourselves. Ryan Watson, Blaine Dickinson, Todd Lucas is a brother of one of our good friends. Lindsay used to work with my wife. A lot of people, Kirk and me, knew each other.
We've run out of friends to where we have to expand the pool a little bit.
So I called Jason. I said, let's go get a beer at Charlie Hooper's, which is one of my favorite bars. I love Charlie Hooper's. And we're for happy hour one day, and I kind of tell him, hey, I said, we're selling this company. I want to, kind of supercharge what I'm doing, and you should do it with me. We really, at that point, unbeknownst to us, had no idea what we were talking about. We knew how to do the law side of things. We knew how to handle the cases. That was a no-brainer. We didn't know what we were getting ourselves into. Would you agree with that?
Yep. I'd been practicing law, doing personal injury, albeit on the defense side, like Michael said, representing people who caused the accident. So I fashioned myself to be a pretty good lawyer in that regard. But in terms of the business of law, like how do you find an office building? How do you get cases? How do you hire people? How do you build a business? Like, I didn't have to do anything like that. And I was at a point in my career where I was comfortable. I generally liked what I was doing, and it was fine. But when Michael approached me about it, I had always had kind of an entrepreneurial itch, if you will, and so it was appealing. But at the same time, I had two small kids at home. it was a risk. I was leaving something that was good and comfortable, but I saw the upside, and I think what I really saw is the upside with Michael. He had a vision, and he also brought to the table a unique perspective from the TV world, and had some knowledge and some familiarity with advertising. And I knew that if we were going to succeed, it was because we had something that other people didn't. Like, there's a lot of good lawyers out there, people that can effectively handle a case, but the advertising and the kind of the business acumen is what I think was really able to get us off the ground.
Yeah, so that would have been, we probably had that conversation end of 2012. We flew down to Mobile, Alabama, met with a law firm down there that used to advertise with us on one of our TV stations in Mobile, a firm named Green and Phillips. And Wes Phillips, David Green were nice enough to literally show us how they operate their law firm in Mobile, and that was probably first part of 2013. We signed a lease in a small office in Westport. 1,500 square feet type of deal. It's now the mail center in our old office. And we had, again, just, flipped the lights on, started running TV commercials. And I'll tell you a funny story so people know, like, Mike's got this, and Mike's got this. Well, how that came about was we went down to Nashville to meet with our advertising agency, and they were like, all right, listen, we have the greatest thing for you. You're gonna snap your fingers and you're gonna say, it's just that easy. And I'm like, that's not me. And my wife's there with me, and she's like, that's not Michael. Like, it's just that easy, with like a gleaming, cheesy smile. So on the fly, I came up with the Mike's Got This with my wife and other people there. And that's kind of the history behind that, is because I was not gonna snap my fingers and say, it's just that easy. But came back, we started running some TV commercials, and I distinctly remember the first day the TV commercials ran was September 30th, 2013. And we're waiting by the phone. We're like waiting. It's like waiting for your high school crush to call you, okay? But it's someone you don't know. Phone rings. And me and Jason were, at that time, it was us two and like one or two other people at this point. So there was no call center. We were doing everything. We were turning the lights on, playing receptionist, playing call center, playing paralegal, playing lawyer, doing all of it. And I answered the phone, and it was my daughter's nanny, Gina. Gina was the first person to call. And I'm like, oh, hey, Gina. She's like, I just saw your commercial. I'm like, yeah, because I was expecting other people to call. Talk to Miss Gina, great lady. Gina, if you're out there and you see this, call me sometime. Next person that rings, my long guy, Keith, called me. He'd seen my commercial. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, is someone actually going to call us? I looked at the numbers recently. That first week, I don't know if we got any legitimate cases that called us. And at that point, we're sitting there going, wow, how are we going to make this work? Like, there were some trying times, trust me, especially first. When you start a new business, especially in the law business, we didn't know this at the time. It takes a while to get traction going, so it took us a while. That's the origin of how the firm started.